Today, I'm going to give you a review and overview of the Cuisinart COS-330 analog electric smoker. This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and I have put this smoker to the test. So first, let's talk a little bit about the smoker. What we have here is a basic steel construction smoker that has double layered walls. So you have the outside wall, and then you have an interior wall. You have a rack holder assembly, and then slide in racks that go right in and out with ease. They are in fixed positions. Now, the cooking space is somewhere around, I believe, 547 square inches, but it's actually a little less than that because you have to account for the rack holders themselves. And also, I typically take that middle shelf and I wire it down near the bottom so I can put a drip tray down on the bottom. But more on that later. Now, the element itself is a 1500 degree element, which is plenty strong enough for a smoker of this size. And it has an analog control dial on the side here, and I'll pop a picture up there so you can see that. And basically, you turn it to adjust it. It reminds me of what we would call a hot plate controller. And it has a built-in thermometer and connects directly to the element. So it controls it on an analog basis. You can adjust it by simply turning it and waiting for a minute and seeing what the temperature ends up at. You can stay with this and get a very accurate temperature. Now, as far as the temperature goes, this temperature gauge I noticed was a little bit inaccurate. It actually read about 20 degrees higher than what the smoker actually is. But I always use a separate probe thermometer in there to verify the temperature because I don't want to take any chances. And I do that for every smoker. I don't do it for just this smoker, so we're not sliding this poor guy. As far as assembly and unboxing and seasoning, this smoker was easy to deal with. Box opened right up, was able to take the smoker right on out of there and flip it over and put the legs on, the handles, and then assemble all the parts like putting the shelves in without a problem at all. Took me less than a half an hour, really easy to do. You could easily do it by yourself, probably in about the same. Instructions are really clear. Before we move on to the seasoning, let me give you a pro tip. Wipe down the inside of the smoker, maybe even with a little bit of light detergent, like some watered down Joy dishwashing soap. Wipe it out. Get all that debris out of there and then wipe it again. Then let it dry. When you go to season it, follow the normal process. My step process is to spray the inside down with a high temperature vegetable oil like a canola or an avocado oil and run it at full temperature. Then run a couple of pans of wood chips through until I'm happy that there's a little bit of smoke buildup so that first smoke will come out tasting good. Now, as far as the design and build, the general design is really straightforward vertical smoker design. The build itself, the quality is really good. I don't find any problems with quality at all on the smoker. It could have used a gasket seal around the door, and then it would have been nice to have a little bit larger intake and outtake vent holes. The only intake is actually the intake where the oil drips out from the bottom. And the only output is a tiny hole right here in the back. And you can see that in a couple of these other pictures. It's a small hole, but because of the way the smoke is produced in this smoker, it works just fine. And it also helps with keeping the temperature stable. By having a smaller hole, you have less airflow. However, I feel like sometimes you want the air to flow a little bit quicker to give you a little bit more of a fresh taste rather than a stale smoke taste. So that's a plus and a minus on that. Performance and usability is our next topic. Now, as far as performance goes, this smoker is supposed to make it up into the 400 degree range. And when I first went to season it, it had a little bit higher temperature range than what it does on a normal basis. After I got it seasoned and I used it a few times, the highest temperature I could reach on a consistent basis was 292 degrees. Now, most smokers won't start smoking a regular solid smoke until you get up into the 160 or maybe a little bit higher range. So I say that this smoker functions well in between 175 and 275. For most foods, that'll be just fine. The only thing I would probably avoid would be poultry, but everything else should perform just fine in there. Just remember to adjust your cooking time to the temperature. When looking at the smoke production, now that was another issue. It seemed like it wasn't producing a lot of smoke. You know, I think that might have a little bit to do with the size holes and just the pan design in general. So if you look down here, you can see the pan design is kind of narrow and long, and it fits right in the tray holder there. Now that is a good thing because it stays really stable, and you can load it with a lot more wood chips than some of the other smokers. And considering how slow it smolders, those wood chips will last longer. However, I like to be able to hit it with a little bit heavier smoke and blow it through there faster, which was my whole point in the venting. When I did my tasting after the first couple of smokes, the smoke was present and there was no problem with it, even though it wasn't very visible. As far as ease of use, this smoker is really easy to use. Assembly was easy and I had no problems using the smoker at all. It heated up, it worked every time and performed just fine. As far as the wood chips go, you want to load whatever you want at the beginning because it can be a little bit of a headache to get that pan in and out. And when I did do that, I had to use my Weber hot gloves to reach in there. So first I pulled the tray out and I made it a little more difficult on myself because I wired that middle tray to the bottom, but I had to reach in there with those and pull it out to add more wood chips. Pro tip, leave the lid off, and then if you want to put in a little more wood chips, you can just put it in there with a metal spoon or something like that and just drop them right in there. As far as the value for the money, this smoker is very reasonably priced, and I would definitely say that I got my money's worth for what I paid. Now you can find it in a range that'll go up and down by about $50, so look for holiday sales and like big events like Prime Day or something like that where you might find it a little bit cheaper. However, at the regular price, it's just fine. One thing I like about this is the long-term value. I feel like because of how it's built and the finish and everything, that this smoker is going to be durable and last for a long time. And because of the small venting, it might actually perform a little bit better in an outdoor storage situation, which I have a problem with that here because of the creek. I get a lot of moisture in my smokers, and then I end up getting mold and I have to wash them out every season. So that should not be a big issue with this one. However, I'm going to try to store this in the garage because this one will end up on the for sale list at some point. I want to go through a small pros and cons list. First pro, easy to assemble and use. Consistent temperature. Once you set it, it kind of stays there. Versatility for variety of foods. Good value for the price point. Cons. Limited to the maximum temperature of around 292 degrees. The built-in thermometer reads slightly higher than the actual temperature. That might vary with each model. Light smoke production that is not really visible to the eye. And potential smoke leak around the door. Now, none of these cons are deal breakers for me, but you might want to know those before you make the purchase. My final thoughts about this smoker is that it actually is a really good value and a great option for a beginner or intermediate smoker, especially if you're just planning on adding some smoke to ribs or doing some roast or something like that. I say that this makes a great second smoker for an advanced smoker who's going to use something like an offset smoker and do their first 6 hours in that and then their next 6 hours in something like this. Because you can set this and go to bed and forget it and come back in the morning and it'll still be working just fine. Now, I think that the best thing that you can do for this smoker is add some sort of an external temperature controller. By setting the analog smoker on its maximum temperature and adding either a budget PID, which usually they have a range of up to about 225 degrees max, you could just plug that in, put the thermometer in there and run it like that. But if you buy a PID kit, like the one that you'll see in a couple of my other videos, and here's a video to the construction of one, then you can plug it in and get whatever temperature this smoker can do, which is still limited to 292 degrees. However, this PID will control that temperature so precisely that after about an hour or so, that thing will keep it within 5 degrees through the entire cooking process. That is how I would take this smoker to the next level. Down below in the description, you're going to find links to the written review and to other articles on my website. Below that, you'll find affiliate links. Those affiliate links will not cost you anything, but they will help support the channel. So even if you don't buy something, check those links out and see what the price is on this smoker and if it is something that you would consider in this budget. Thanks for watching and have a great day.